Welcome to Quantum Command Radio, where we talk about all things quantum. You can visit our website at www.quantumcommand.net or subscribe by clicking the subscribe button and hit that bell button for the latest and greatest within the quantum realm. Together, we will discuss topics related to quantum command, wellness, and explore all the new discoveries within this work. And now, let's go quantum.
Hi, this is Jessica Rogers, and I'm here with Natalie again, and also with Drew and Erin is sitting in too. So everybody say hi, not all at once.
Hi. Hi.
So,
hi, Jess.
Yeah. Hi.
It's good to be here. It's good to be here with the gang.
It is. It's a full house.
It's a full house.
It's fun.
What are we going to talk about today?
Well, we're gonna hit another hot topic because we're good at those.
Nuh-uh.
So we're going to talk about the medical and the pharmaceutical industry and how we approach medicine in society today, and maybe from a Christian perspective, why that doesn't quite fit.
Yeah, right.
So I'm probably just going to sit back and listen for a majority of the time, but I'm looking forward to hearing what Drew has to say and what you have to say to fill in, and let's get to it.
Yeah. So here's the thing is most of the time by the time people get to me, they have completely exhausted all possibilities, including the medical field. They have tried diagnoses, they have tried medications, they have tried surgeries, they've tried getting organs removed, they've tried getting organs transplanted, they've tried you just name it, herbology, homeopathy, oils, tinctures, nutrient therapies, rife therapies. I mean, it is unbelievable. But what so many people come to me and talk to me about in the very beginning is, I got this reaction from the doctor. I got this reaction from the doctor. It's this reaction from the doctor. It's the same conversation with each person. It's, we're going to diagnose you. You're going to take this medicine. And then I had this one girl today, just in the last week, she was talking about how she was suffering from crippling depression, just totally out of her mind depression. She started trying to take a pharmaceutical and had an extreme reaction to it. And coming off of that medication was so unbelievably painful. And so they tried to give her another medication to help her come off of it. And then when she was trying to successfully come off of it, eventually they took her off the medication she was using to come off of it, and it made her fall apart again. And it's like this torment cycle that they have all this control over what they say is wrong with your body and what types of things that you have access to. This is just the front end. I'm already venting and we haven't even gotten started yet. But so often people come to me and they're exhausted and they're penniless. They have no money. Their doctor's not listening to them anymore. The doctor has given up on them. And they're done. And a lot of people come to me and they're like, I just expect I'm going to not live. Like, I'm just not going to live to see my daughter's wedding. I'm not going to live to see my kids graduate. That's just where I'm at. And it is, as someone who, I was too poor. Like when I got sick, I was too poor to go to the doctor. I mean, we would have literally taken food off of our table in order. It wasn't like we had any excess income. So I was desperate, and that desperation paid off, because crying out to God, that's where you really want to, get your information from. And so when that happened and I started doing this work, I knew that if I had gone the doctor route, they would have killed me. Because so many of my friends at that time had gone the doctor route and they were on heavy doses of antibiotics. They were dealing with extreme pain issues that are giving them med addictions to different, opioids and other types of pain meds. So, a lot of clients come to me with just general frustration, and they're too sick to really go against the medical establishment and say, hey, you're treating me. I mean, the whole thing is that the medical establishment's clients are all sick. So there's not going to be some kind of revolution in the patients who are in the system. You have to literally come out of the system in order to start a revolution. And Drew and I have been talking about this on and off for the past year. And he sees it, he has seen it firsthand, particularly with Erin interacting with the doctors and stuff. So we're just kind of volley back and forth, ideas. And he has a lot of ideas and understanding of the medical system. Because I didn't interact with it as much as some of my clients did, I just have a peripheral understanding. I didn't have to go through the torture chamber of a lot of these doctors and diagnoses. So I'm just going to hand the mic over to Drew and say hello, Drew and Erin, and really glad you're here. And I know they have a really unique perspective on how this all works. So I'm going to just let you go ahead and talk, Drew.
Yeah, I think it's a really good subject because a lot of people everybody takes the medical establishment, the medical education system, the pharmaceutical industry kind of for granted. It's very impressive from a certain sense. It's very there's a lot of momentum behind it. There's a lot of respect involved in it, and a lot of it is warranted. I mean, it's very impressive, some of these drugs they come up with, and they have to spend billions of dollars to develop these things. There's real science involved. All that is true, but so everybody takes it for granted because of that. But one thing I started to realize once I encountered quantum command and quantum release and stuff is like how much more sense this work makes from a Christian perspective than the medical establishment, the status quo. And I don't think people have quite realized how at odds the philosophical foundation of the medical system is with Christianity. It is actually completely diametrically opposed to it. And it doesn't seem like it, but it really is.
And it's really weird because there's a lot of Christians in the church that when you're sick, they just say, go to the doctor, go get the surgery. They give their bodies over to someone who is supposedly more of an expert to them, and they're on medications. And look, I get it. I get that some of them are desperate and they don't know the difference. And they just haven't done the math, because really we're on this trajectory where 50, 60 years ago, doctors weren't like they were today. Most of the time, 50, 60 years ago, like my grandparents, that era had pretty legitimate health care to some degree until it started to change and morph. We still are supposed to trust the doctors like our grandparents and our parents told us, because that's what we've been taught. Because early in the day, a long time ago, you probably could do very little harm listening to the doctor of that age.
Yeah, and I'm not bashing doctors. I'm talking philosophy right now, and like the unexamined assumptions that are underlying all the different characteristics of like where the medical system has gone and some of the blinders it has and the box it's in. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So I wrote down a couple of notes. I'm just going to read some of the stuff I wrote, and I think it might be helpful to just as a jumping off. So, I feel like people need to dismantle their traditional understanding of what the body is and where it came from. I think that's really fundamental, and it's not really thought about very much. So even Christians need a lot of help with this. Most Christians believe in the intelligent design of the body. If you ask them, they would say, yeah, I believe that. Of course, obviously. Okay, but the way they behave in response to sickness is actually completely opposed to that philosophy for a couple of reasons. They confess the one view in principle, but practice the opposite. They trust the medical system whose foundational philosophy is completely incompatible with, here's the little tagline, it's completely incompatible with reality. Let's be honest. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So the whole medical field operates on the philosophical foundation of Darwinism. So evolution, molecules to man, random processes leading to more and more complex and amazing life forms, right? So it says that the bodies of the human race are constantly developing through random mutation, in response to the environment. Okay, so that's the underlying philosophy. So, okay, so during its development, random of a species, right? Random genetic mutations occur such that the vast majority are harmful or fatal. So 99.999% are going to be harmful or fatal, or at least neutral to the member of that species.
That species, right?
So passing on that, so they're gonna be weeded out by natural selection.
Which means, the nice word, that's a nice word for they die.
Yeah, they die, they don't procreate, something bad happens. They're not having a good life. Let's leave it at that. So that's that you would expect in a random process environment that the vast majority of random mutations are going to be bad because of entropy. Entropy is random. It's not going to produce like helpful things generally. But the theory goes with Darwinism, over vast, deep time and with billions and billions of members of a population, every so often you get lucky and, a tiny percentage of these mutations are beneficial. And those people will be naturally selected and move the species forward and progress the species to a better state, I guess. So it follows, therefore, that in a population like that, we would expect that. So if we let's just take a snapshot of it, a day in the life of a species on Darwinism, your species on Darwinism.
Right.
So what would it look like? So it follows that the vast majority of the bodies of the members of that species would experience major health problems at some point. And you would see a constant state of suffering and death. Because
of the randomness of the genetic mutations that are not working for the species in general.
And the assumption would be natural selection would weed those people out. But if you took a snapshot at any given time, no matter how far you are into this so-called progress towards wherever we're going, it would be not a great thing. You would not have people living happy lives generally.
Right, we're miserable.
That are evolving in a positive way, and the vast majority would be getting selected out. Okay, so that's a bad snapshot, right? We would look at that as Christians and be like, there's something wrong with that picture that's not good, right? Because there's suffering and death. But from an evolutionary perspective, you would look at that picture and say, no, that's actually a sign of health.
That's normal.
That's actually a sign the species is undergoing normal
transition,
evolution. So therefore, no correction is needed. That's fine. That's what we expect.
And
your philosophical underpinning of the medical system is that's not alarming from that philosophy, whereas from the Christian philosophy, it's extremely alarming.
And when they talk about Darwinism, they sort of make it non-human. So you're always looking at other species whose weak and frail are being weeded out, and they sort of attribute the slow of the herd, the sickly, the dying, and that's a good thing, and so that the other members of the society raise up and continue to procreate and can escape death faster and all that. But when you look at it from a human standpoint, when you look at it, it's like, okay, well, let's take a picture let's just assume Darwinism is happening right now. That is your aunt, your uncle, your children, us. We're dying, we're weak. That really takes humanity out of humanity. You don't even start to see us as humans anymore. We're just cattle responding to our environment.
Yes. And so a philosophy like that, what would that cause? If you have that as your underlying philosophical foundation as a medical professional, what direction would that send you? So that leads to an inability to correctly identify the nature and root cause of disease, and leads to a worldview that's comfortable rather than uncomfortable with widespread physical suffering, because you're thinking those are normal. And how do you look at those people that are not in the 0.0001% that have got beneficial mutations? You're looking at them like, well, look, dude, your body is created by randomness, and there's no reason to believe. Like, let's say you have like diabetes, or you have AIDS, or you have you have like a chronic illness. You have like Crohn's disease, right? there's no reason you would look at that body and be like, okay, that needs a tune-up because that should be working, but it's not. So we need to go and figure out, what is perturbing that body, because there's no reason it shouldn't work. It was designed. No, they're thinking it's totally normal. You'd have Crohn's. Your body is it's just bad, And our approach is going to be, since it's not intelligently designed, our approach is going to be, we're smart. We know more than this random evolutionary process. We're going to get our fingers in there and mess around and reconfigure this thing with drugs, with surgeries, with stuff like that, to try to make it work the way we think it should.
Right.
But in reality, your body is designed by a very, very proficient engineer who knows what the heck he's doing. And if it's not working, it's not because you were just made like that. It's happening for a very specific reason. It's like if your car is not working, you go and plug in your little OBD2 sensor and you read the trouble codes, and it says, oh, your cylinder's misfiring. Your cylinder 3 is misfiring. You're not like, oh, well, this thing was designed by a random process, so we're just gonna like, I don't know, do something. We're just gonna drill that cylinder out and like replace it with something else, like something totally different, No, it's like you're gonna go in and replace a spark plug. It's like, okay, and now I put a spark plug that complies with the specifications of the car by the designer, and now it works great, Totally different approach. And this work is totally that second approach. It's
Right.
giving the body a little more credit and giving the designer a little more credit and trying to figure out what is really wrong rather than trying to re-engineer it.
Right. And if you hear the doctors and the statisticians and the scientists, what they will tell you, which I think is completely, wrong in my opinion, is they'll say, well, it's your DNA. You're predisposed to breast cancer. And so they have this whole market for you to get your genetic information tested and decoded so that you can see what your predispositions are.
Yeah.
When in reality, that's not what's going on. I mean, what we know through this work is they're fiddling with the genetic information, and they're creating mutes. It's muting the genetic material in some ways so that the genetic tests come out that way. And we can do that. We can talk about that another time. But really, what they're doing, it's a whole marketing campaign. The whole marketing campaign supports that Darwinism that we just need to fix the genetic code. If we could, because think about it. If you marketed for 50 years that it's your genes, and until we fix the genes, we're going to give you these medications, we're going to give you these diagnostic tools, we're going to give you all these different things, and later down the road, they come up with a gene fix, you will welcome it with open arms. They're the heroes, which I believe, by the way, which is another discussion, is the whole purpose of transhumanism. The whole purpose of transhumanism is to introduce this silicone-based or AI-based type software, hardware put into the body to fix the genetic information problem. When in reality, the problem is not the genetic information. But if you believe Darwinism, if you believe that whole concept, of course it's going to be our genes. Because Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, in Darwinism, there is no such thing as human. There's no like, oh, that's a human, that's not. It's just a blob. It's just a continuum of natural random processes.
And we just happen to we call this stage that we're in Homo sapien, but our next stage, the next stage could be a merging of, let's just say, technology. Which, just for a second, we can talk about this. All these are like little, bombs going off in my head. But that's the whole point of the gender issue. If you can say that there's any type of gender that's available, and you can make yourself whatever you want to be, then the genetic information is something that you can overcome. And then if you can just have any definition that you want, once you get to transhumanism, you can define yourself however you want to. They can change the definition of humanity. If you can change what your gender is or be defined however you want, once you get into the transhumanism, situation, it's not hard to redefine humanity because they've been doing it for 30, 40 years. It's a whole marketing strategy. I know that's not where we were going with this, but it's just one of those pieces of the unintended consequences of Darwinism. When you begin to believe that Darwinism is true, the whole perspective of what the human body is completely changes.
Completely changes. And I don't think Christians realize, I don't think anybody thinks about the philosophical foundation of the medical system versus this work. They're completely different. And this work is completely, it's perfectly meshed with Christianity. It's perfectly meshed because it says the body is very well designed. It's designed to be durable. It's designed to be very resilient to harsh, like non-optimal environments. And what we found in this work is it takes some serious heavy duty manipulation to get the body sick.
That's right.
It's not a willy-nilly thing to get Crohn's disease. It's like billions and billions in research and like generations of pushing out nanotechnology.
Yes.
And you know what? If you're not like on board with that, I think that's crazy. This is just not for you. I mean, it's just unavoidable in this work. Is so obvious. The Hegelian dialectic, where they create a problem in order to provide their preferred and very profitable solution for them. You know, that's the medicals. I'm not bashing doctors. Doctors don't know this. It's just the system they're working under is doing this though.
And you weren't, I mean, in the very beginning, when this kind of work was on your radar, you weren't totally sold. Like, this was a process of awakening and an awareness for you that at one point you went, this is true. Like, this work has figured out some solutions and also has figured out what the problem has been all along. And look,
Yes.
I'm not anybody special. This is just something that I was desperate for. I was desperate because I was so sick. I could not get out of bed. My kid had autism, Asperger's. We weren't like strolling towards the abyss. We were on an airplane dropping from the sky, speeding down towards the abyss, ready to go into it, in total. And I'd like to hear a little bit about that journey, how you kind of I know that you were probably already in a situation where you didn't like the medical industry, but at least you guys were trying to Erin was basically trying to stay alive. It was just, can we just keep her alive until God does something?
I do my best to be open-minded about stuff because I kind of made a vow to myself when I was a little kid that, like, if I uncover something that is factually true, I will change what I believe to incorporate it, and that's always just been a value system. So it was pretty fast, but I think I flipped pretty fast. I think we met you in like February or late February of like 2018 last year. And by like 2 months later, I was like completely going the opposite direction on like how to fix Erin's health problems. Yeah. I don't really remember the process. I just remember it being like, I think I said this in our other video, but one of the main reason we even signed up for the first client appointment was because, well, this is the one thing we haven't done. And you know what? It's like $300 or whatever it was. I forgot. And you know what? I can just pay the money, get the appointment. She can get the appointment. She doesn't have to learn anything. She doesn't have to perform. She doesn't have to do anything. It's just like Natalie does it all for her right there. And it's done. It's like, all right, I'll throw $300 at that, turn over that last rock just to say I've done everything. And there's nothing, just so it was honestly just like, just to sleep well at night. We have a clear conscience that we've tried everything, So that's where we started out. And then I remember, we took a walk one time and we're like, do you think this is going to work? And I was like, I don't think it is. I don't think so. We'll see, but I don't know. And then it totally did. And I don't know. It was easy for me in a sense to switch because the results were just so obvious. They're undeniable. You just can't argue with results like that. So
and
I was like, all right, I'm just going to throw this all in the trash can and just go this other direction.
And what you discovered, what we all discovered in this process, is exactly what you said. In order to make the body sick, it requires a Herculean effort. to put things in the body, particularly in our situations that we have seen, this layered technology that divides and conquers the body over time so that systemically it shuts the genetic information down and begins to control the genetic information and control the body. And that pathogenically and toxin wise, we could defeat most of the things that were out there unencumbered by a lot of this nanotechnology, what they call it. I don't call it nanotechnology much. I call it quantum technology, but I see where people kind of need another word for reference, which is nanotechnology, and which is the technology of the tiny. But the quantum technology uses that nanotechnology, bends light, bends gravity, fragments time within the quantum system of the body so that the body cannot see it. And therefore it overcomes the genetic information.
Yeah, nanotechnology is pretty out there for most people right now, but yeah, this is like it's like nanotechnology.
Nano, yeah, right, the quantum technology.
So I can't remember if I said this in the other video, but it's just a good example. Your car, I said this before, your car, you can plug in to the little port and you can read the trouble codes when something's wrong. You get a warning light, you can read the code and it'll tell you what's wrong with it, basically, in a certain way. That's designed by a human being. That technology has been around for 50 years, maybe 30 years or something. And doesn't it just make sense that God, when he designs a machine, would also have a diagnostic system? Right? I mean, it makes complete sense. If you just like get rid of the Darwinism, just clear your mind of everything Darwinism, everything evolution, just think about this, just assuming God made you. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, it's just common sense, right? The body's way too complex to not have a diagnostic system. I mean, it's way too complex. Like your computer has a diagnostic system. It'll tell you if like a file's missing or something. It's not just gonna like turn off and that's it and you gotta throw it away. I mean, airplanes have very complex diagnostic systems. Everything does. And I mean, doesn't it make sense that your body would too? I mean, it makes complete sense. It's like not even a radical idea when you really think about it. And I don't think like that's the kind of stuff we need to rethink, like the foundational philosophy of like the direction we've been going is influenced by things that we don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's influenced by this Darwinian assumption, and it leads you in so many directions that are wrong. It leads you to just proliferation of pharmaceuticals, and we just need to fix the body chemically and all that stuff.
It cycles in and out.
Yeah, and the science, like the actual science part of it, isn't necessarily wrong. It's pursuing the wrong solution.
And by diagnostic, you're talking about the muscle testing. You're talking about
so you can muscle test the body, and the body can tell you, oh, I got a toxin today. I got a pathogen today. MFI was in the body 2 days ago. Yeah.
That's what my favorite part about this work is. And I think that's what a lot of clients go away with going, now I feel like I know. It's not that it's the body's biofeedback mechanism. When you get really good at it, the body gives you this biofeedback mechanism. And it doesn't have to be the thumbs up, thumbs down like I do, like I teach in the university. It's the best way that I have found because it's the most effective. It's the most, it's the quickest way. It's like the quickest, dirtiest way to get information from the body. That's what I wanted. Something that couldn't be interfered with for the most part, that didn't need two people. I don't have to pull my arm out and have a person, push down. Was that weak? Was that strong? That's too tedious. I needed information fast and I needed it quick and I needed it to be accurate because I needed to know why I was sick because a year ago, when I was doing this stuff and dealing with this, I wasn't sick. My kid was born healthy. My son was born healthy. Why did he plummet? What was behind all that? And this is what I love is the diagnostic piece is the body telling you what is in the body.
Yeah.
It's not me trying to go, well, nanotechnology is the thing now, so that's what we're going to probably find. No, it's like some people don't have nanotechnology. Some people just have like pathogens and toxins. They got aluminum in their body like crazy because of something that happened in their life. It gets quantumly released. That's great. And that's the key piece is the diagnostic piece because you walk away knowing. And not only can you know, but you can know from whatever, from the very beginning of your life to now, and we can track things in real time. We have figured out how to track, this is healing, this is what your body's doing right now, you've disrupted your hormones using this product, this is a system that's not functioning right now, this is what you need to do. And augment in real time, because what we discovered with this work, particularly with the muscle testing, is that the body reacts in real time. If you ask it to do something, it does it right now. It doesn't delay for 6 years and you have to wait till the detox happens and you're just on chelation therapies and calcium, magnesium therapies. You can deal with the issue now in real time with the diagnostic piece.
The other thing that that really strikes me is what you have found regarding the endocrine and lymphatic system and how delicately finely tuned they are, and how that is a part of the body that's complete. Those two systems are completely overlooked by the medical paradigm, and the exactness of and maybe you could even share that that example of that train with the saturation of the hormone in it, because I'm not as adept at it, but the delicacy of the delicateness of how perfectly the quantity of hormone has to be to create the exact right result in the exact right place in the body to create exact perfect function. You can only do that by design.
That's right. And the endocrine system, go ahead. I got two people. Yeah,
I was just going to do a mini rant. Like the coolest thing, not the coolest thing, one of the cool things about this is this just completely dead to rights proves God. It's just proven. It's over. It's over. Like, this system cannot evolve. This is impossible. You can't have a system that is self-diagnosing and acts like a computer system where you can add capabilities to it, like you're downloading things from an app store. When Natalie creates scans, she asks the body, do you have the ability to add this? And it's like, yes. Oh, I can. It's like downloading an app from an app store. It's like you are created. You are not evolved. It's settled. Settled science, okay?
Settled.
Settled science.
Jess, you were going to say something.
I want to make a comparison as I hear you talking between what I've experienced in the medical industry and what this work presents. One thing that I hear a lot from doctors is, well, what you're experiencing is normal. Like what Erin was saying, all my hormones were within a normal range. Who decides what's normal? Because by far what I was experiencing was not normal. It was common. And that's the difference.
Yes.
Doctors are telling me what's common and not what's normal. And I knew what I was experiencing was not how God had designed my body to work.
Bingo.
The other difference that I'm hearing is that the medical field treats symptoms. They do not treat the root cause because they don't always know what the root cause is. So they treat symptoms. And if medicine A doesn't work, then they go down the list to medicine B, to medicine C. And if medicine C gives you weird side effects, then they treat that with medicine 2. And then pretty soon you're on all these different medicines and you still haven't gotten to the root issue. Whereas this quantum command work addresses the root cause. There's no guessing because you have the diagnostic tool you need.
And the body does the heavy lifting. Here's the thing, is when you have something in the body that's causing all these different symptoms, you've got me all fired up now, the body does the heavy lifting. It's the body that does the quantum release. I don't do anything. I am not a healer. I don't heal people. I just tell the body what to do. I muscle test, and I figured out that you can command the body to do stuff. And if you do it right, you can have permanent genetic add-ons that you have for the rest of your life, which is quantum release. That's the whole idea, is the body quantumly releases these aberrant things in the body that are not supposed to be there, and then the body can immediately default to what? To your genetic material that you're supposed to be in tune with anyway, since you were born, but these technologies get in the way of you being able to experience life in the fullness. And so they show up as these, normal things. And think about that for a second. Now I'm mad. I mean, think about the difference between normal and common. Okay, because think about the brainwashing. How many things are normal? Allergies are normal. Springtime allergies are normal. Flu seasons are normal. Sometimes you just have infertility. Cramping when you have your periods is normal. All these different, I guess when you eat wheat, that's normal that you get sick. That gluten allergy is normal. And I can tell you, we have 60 years where we have been told what is normal. And the millennials love them. God loved them. They haven't seen a generation that's been fully well. My generation that's been fully well was my grandparents. That was 30, 40, 50 years ago. They lived healthy lives. They were out in the fields every day, picking cotton, picking tomatoes, growing their own food, harvesting wheat. They were raising animals. They were up at dawn. They went to bed at dusk. They did all of these things every single day. They went and fought wars. They weren't sick with fibromyalgia. That was rare. That was not common. And so what we have been told over time, well, this is common. It's common for people at the age of 50, 55 to start losing their period and go through these horrible transitions and now it's earlier than that. Now it's 45, 40. It's normal now to have early menopause, and it's going to be horrible. You're going to have night sweats. You're going to feel like you want to die. You want to, kill the guy next door because he's just, tapping his hammer a little too loud, and you're just freaking out because you can't stand the noise because you're hormonal and you're freaking out. That's normal. It's normal. Autism is now the new normal. What is it? 1 in 38 kids? 1 in 38 kids has autism. That is insane.
That is like alarm bells insane.
That's even in the Darwin paradigm. Even in the Darwin paradigm, if you're to believe the Darwin paradigm, that is a big red flag that major groups of the herd are collapsing. And why is that? Yes. And we need to, oh my gosh, is all of a sudden in the last 100 years, our genetics turned bad? Is that what it is? I mean, in the Darwinian paradigm?
Why did they say normal instead of common?
Why?
Because of the philosophy.
Exactly.
Right? It's exactly what I was saying. It's like, it is normal in a Darwinian system to have all these horrible miseries. That's normal. That's expected. That's fine.
And the lack of compassion that you find, with treatment protocols displays that as well. Women
also,
going.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
That's all right. Well, I was just going to say women going, particularly women. I hear this a lot with women going to male doctors. I think you just need to chill out. You just have too much stress. And I'm like, I'm having migraines like once a week for like 6 months. That's not normal. You just, maybe you need to just relax more. Or I think it's in your head. You're imagining it. Those types of.
Natalie, my doctor told me I was just getting older. I was 26. 26. Exactly. You're just getting older.
And they're digging your grave at 45. They're like, well, life's over at 45. What do you have to live for?
I got to point out one more thing too is, Jess, you talked about they never get at the root cause. And why do you think that is? I think it's because it's the philosophy. In a Darwinian system, there isn't a root cause.
It's inherent in the system.
It would be impossible to discern the actual root cause because you'd have to go back 6 million years through 1,000 generations and through 1 billion different little happenstances of everybody's life back through your family tree to figure out what went wrong. It's a continuum. Like they don't believe in a root cause.
That's right.
That philosophy completely diverts them away from that sort of thinking.
And not only that, but they profit.
Because the symptom is the problem in that system.
That's right. And they profit from not finding the root cause. They profit from, think about, who was I talking to today that was talking about, was it Erin? Was it you that was talking about where this whole system was created to bleed the money out of our pockets, to bleed us dry.
Exactly. Yeah. Dan Duvall had a guest on who's a doctor, and his name's escaping me at the moment. But he went through and he gave like a thorough history of how there was the osteopathic medicine, and then there was this like more chemistry based medicine or whatever, and how the osteopathic medicine was curing people. So it was not where they wanted to invest their resources and their, corner of the market kind of attention, because it wasn't going to be a payout in the long term in on the scale that they wanted it to be. And we talk about how a lot of the different things that happen, they kind of help with many agendas at one time.
Right.
But with that particular thing, it also does a really good job at getting rid of the middle class. Because you used to see where people would have like a group of people from some type of association would just put money in, and then somebody would get sick and somebody would take money out and get their medical care. There was no like big overarching insurance industry. It was just these localized,
Charities.
organizations that you would belong to and pay into that would have your back when you needed it, because it wasn't a systemic problem. It was a happenstance.
That's right. And now it's strange if you don't get breast cancer. Now you're really, really lucky if you don't get breast cancer. And it's now it's like, like Jessica said, it's normal. It's common. It's so common that they have, cancer wings. They have huge buildings specifically designed for cancer, and lots of money pouring into the cancer issue on a continual basis. It is. Go ahead, Jess.
It's incredibly sad to even think about that they have a whole cancer wing, because that's common. And this goes back to something that Drew said earlier, or maybe you, I can't remember. One of you were in a rant. I'm not sure which one. But what made us sick to begin with was the misuse of genetic information.
That's right.
Genetic information that was distorted, that was manipulated in some way and put back into the body to harm the body.
That's right.
Think about that. If you're trying to hide a paradigm, hide behind a certain paradigm, you do still have to give results that are consistent with that paradigm. You can't just, say, oh, we were, evolving, and these are the implications of it, and guess what, your genetics are better than that. Like, you can't leave it like that. It does. I mean, it's probably not the strongest point in in our quiver here, but it's it's just another area where they you almost have to mess with the genetics if you're going to tout a philosophy like Darwinism as
that's right,
the overarching paradigm.
That's right. And there's a huge rush. We all want to pay our $99 to, put a cotton swab in our mouth or whatever they do and send off that information so that someone else can analyze it. The experts can analyze it and then tell us what we are very likely to have. What type of fear and agreement that you put yourself through when you find out these just, supposed genetic aberrations. And it sets us up, again, the Hegelian. How do you say that? I always get it wrong.
Hegelian.
It's because I have a little bit of the dyslexia kicks in every once in a while. But that dialectic is exactly what they're looking for. They present you with the problem. The problem is your genetics, and they brainwash you for 30, 40, 50 years, raise entire generations to go, hey, don't you want to get your genetics changed and get them tested and see what needs to change? And then later, after a cycle of all this brainwashing, they can present the solution. They present the solutions, and some of those solutions are being experimented with right now in our bodies in real time in the last 50, 60 years. And that's the nanotechnology. That's the quantum technology, the quantum pathogens, and the quantum programming, basically, that can take the genetic information, suppress it, force it to obey other programming, and then they can measure that and they can track that, because if you have the nanotechnology in the body, they're tracking it at all times. It's not like it's a one-off where they're just tracking you with feet on the ground. They're tracking you digitally, quantumly, uploading that information to the big, sort of what I call the AI in the sky. And they track all that and say, well, what happened when we wiggled chromosome 5? What happened when we suppressed, genetic number, gene number 23 in females? What happened? What happened to, and so they begin to track all that. Yeah. And so when you track all that and you can get information in real time about what the nanotechnology is doing in humans, it makes it easier and complete to be able to present that solution later. Like, well, we figured it out, because they have literally figured it out. They're the reasons why we're sick. Then they can delete that information and all of a sudden we're well again. And we think that they're gods.
And that gets to a point also that even though it's not like exactly relevant to the Darwinian philosophy piece, there's this authority perspective that people have with, oh, well, the doctor said, and it holds this weight. It has some type of like clout, like credibility in our society that gives them more power than other people, because there's this certain type of education that they've had, but they've been educated within a certain paradigm, and their paradigm is flawed. There's nothing wrong with authority when it comes from a righteous source.
Right.
But the doctor is not an authority in this system, because the system itself is not credible.
Exactly.
That does not mean that people don't need it as a stopgap in the process of getting well with the quantum work. That's not what I'm getting at. It's the underlying ideology behind the system that is not an authority over God's people.
That's right.
You don't have to bow to the doctor being the boss of you.
Right. You're not the boss of me, and you don't have to be. Exactly. I hear many people come to me and they go, what am I going to tell my doctor if I'm well? I'm not sick anymore. What do I tell them? And I'm like, do you have to tell them? Like, why do you have to tell them? Why do you have to dialogue with them in any way? Who said so? Who made it the law that you have to do that?
There's a feeling of obligation that people have, because this is a revered status in our society. And if you disobey your doctor, you're not a good person. That's not true.
Right.
And
Exactly.
it's to the extent where, our government recognizes the authority of a doctor's words over like anybody else's. It's a very privileged position.
When I was diagnosed with Crohn's, I was a minor. I was 13. My mom made me take my medicine so the government wouldn't take me away. Right.
And that is exactly why people move into homeschool communities. They are tired of because, the school system is another level of reporting. In order to go into the school system, you have to vaccinate your children. And if the nurse or if a teacher or if an authority in the school system sees something that could be theoretically wrong with your kid, they actually have an obligation, it's the law, to report to social services. So then you have these communities of people who are tired of getting their children taken away for completely non-relevant reasons. And that's why there's a crackdown on vaccines right now, on homeschool people right now, because we're choosing to be out of the system. They can't track us. They don't know what we're doing. They don't know what we're thinking. How many babies are we having? What are we teaching our babies? Are we teaching them about God? Are we teaching them about humanity? Are we teaching them Darwinism? Well, darn it, you need to use our curriculum. That's why homeschooling is such a big deal. That's why they hate homeschoolers. That's why they try really hard to malign homeschoolers, but they don't ever succeed because homeschoolers always test higher than public school kids. And the other thing is that if a homeschooler is pulled out of their public school system, they still get the same amount of money as if that homeschooler was still getting in public school. So if they have, 40, 50 people, 50 kids in their district that are homeschooled, they still get that money in their public school, but they don't have to, they don't have to allocate it per that particular student. So it's kind of like money in their back pocket. And it's
like paying a mobster.
That's right.
I do find it kind of humorous that they're raising a panic currently over a rash and a cold and fever.
That's right. The measles.
You can't treat a week-long rash, cold, and fever at the house, then we're doing something wrong.
I was just listening to a YouTube. If I remember correctly, I think this was SGT report, if I'm not mistaken, and he just did a really great broadcast with a gentleman who wrote a book about the transhumanism and the autism spectrum, and they were talking about vaccines and how on the Brady Bunch there was this part in the Brady Bunch where all the kids get measles. And they're all laughing it up because, we have to be at home. And the greatest thing about being at home is you get to play and you don't have to go to school. And everybody's joking. And it's a big thing, like in the dad, they have measles. And the mom's like, yeah, I think that's what's going on. That's what the nurse sent them home. And they've got spots. And he's like, okay, well, I guess I'll welcome my freckled kid when I get home and tell him I'll bring him some comics and some ice cream when I get home. And it's just not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's like the flu, except you have bumps all over your body and you might be uncomfortable. Remember the chicken pox. Would we create a huge vaccine campaign because of chicken pox? We would not have done that. You would have been like, I have the chicken pox. Go home. Yeah, it's going to itch. It's not going to be fun. But you'll be okay. You'll get over it. And you'll have a boosted immune system that might actually allow you to fight off pathogens and toxins later on in your life. That's natural. So you're right. It's interesting. I had this client. I hadn't talked to her in a while, and she's getting all of her kids scanned one at a time. She's got a bunch of kids, so it's one at a time. And we hadn't talked in several months, and she said, Natalie, I can tell when you make them mad because they start doing stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, didn't you see the measles thing in New York? They're trying to arrest people for not having measles vaccines. You're really making them mad, Natalie. They don't have any power anymore. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of seeing some of that going on right now because they're losing grids. These technological grids are going to cause long-term problems with their money-making system.
Luckily with quantum release, if you do have to take a vaccine, like it'll just go away anyway.
Right.
There's bad stuff in it.
That's right.
So
and that's cool. The thing is a lot of these vaccines do have the nanotechnology, the quantum technology. It's a technology delivery system. It really is. And that's what the medical system has become. Combating problems that they injected you with 10 years ago in vaccines they gave you and pressured you after you had your baby. And they said, you really should get these 3 vaccines for the baby, so that you are okay and the baby doesn't get sick. Again, the word common, normal. It's normal for babies to get sick. It's normal for these things to happen. Well, I don't think so.
It's not normal. It's a good use. The whole vaccine thing is actually a good use case for quantum release, because if you can get the scan, if you're in a position where you can't homeschool, you got to go to public school, and you got to get the vaccines. I mean, if you can get quantum release, you'll be
home free, and that's why I don't worry. I mean, if that were to come to our community, yeah, I would fight it. I would fight it until I couldn't fight it anymore, until they showed up at my door. But if my kids were to get it, I would not be worried, because my kids have quantum release, and they have the ability to quantumly release not only a pathogen or a toxin that comes into the body that can make them sick, or aluminum or mercury or anything else that's in that vaccine supposedly, or human DNA, aborted fetal cells, whatever that is. But they also have the ability to quantumly release the technology that is, in the delivery system. And that's what comforts me. I've seen this work. Here's the deal about quantum release. It works 100% of the time. Quantum release is not something that works from time to time, depending on what has come into the body. It works 100% of the time. And that's what gives me hope. That's what helps me feel secure. And my kids are really rarely sick. They don't really have a lot of sickness.
I forgot about the aborted fetal cell thing in the vaccines too. Yeah, that sort of changes the conversation.
It does. And it really goes back to the Darwinian perspective of trying to introduce other DNA into other people's bodies in the hopes of what? Of creating better DNA. Having injected aborted fetal cell DNA in your body is just akin to cannibalism. It's just what happens.
And then you're getting into that, the part of the medical system that's wanting to take control of evolution. And that's a whole nother conversation.
It is, but it's
that foundational paradigm in order to want to be the boss of your own, transformation or whatever.
That's right. Because the goal is ultimate control of humanity. In the meantime, they get to pursue goals and dreams of being gods and immortal, while us little piddly people down here at the bottom, the slaves, we have to just do their bidding, and we get the technology that destroys our body instead of makes it well.
But we're a great source of information for them to study.
That's right. That's right. The genetic information that they don't have, they can aggregate and monitor and group together using the technology to, beam up that information to AI in the sky, is what I call it, in order to better themselves. And then, that gets into the weird stuff like adding on third strands of DNA and the nanotechnology that is, permanent in the body, and those kinds of things that people just aren't aware of. But the layered technology is, so much of what we come into contact with. And that gives us a real perspective of even the deeper abyss that is behind the curtain of the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry.
Yeah. And if you're the kind of person who's just coming into contact with the idea that there's advanced, quantum technology, quantum pathogen stuff done in a nefarious way by people against the population on purpose. I understand it's a really radical idea if you haven't really looked into that, but the body is really clear in the way it answers the questions. This is happening. It's happening. It's just 100% for sure happening.
Yeah, and the diagnostic
You interpret the muscle testing in a way that it lets you get around that. It's just unavoidable. It's real.
Right. This style of muscle testing is really unique. It's not really like any other muscle testing that I have come across, and it has a unique style of biofeedback that doesn't give you lying answers. It's the most annoyingly technical, language that you can possibly get. And Justin knows, just everybody that's in the university, that's why it's a 2-year university. It's because if you get one word wrong in the question that you ask the body, you're in trouble. You just get a bunch of wrong answers.
But also, when you ask the right question, you will get the answer that's correct, even if it's not the answer you expect.
Bingo.
And that's because you're working with a system, a real system,
A real feedback system.
Most people do muscle testing. It's really wishy-washy. It's not technical. And a lot of times you're not getting correct answers, or you're not getting the answers to the question you think you're asking because you are working with a sophisticated computer system. And you have to use it properly. You have to be technical about the questions. Yeah, I think that's a big place people fall down with muscle testing, from what I've seen.
And they have a hard time with the paradigm of muscle testing. They have a hard time believing that muscle testing can be legitimate. I mean, just, it's kind of like the same group of folks that have a hard time with the oils and the homeopathy. If you kind of have a problem with that, then the muscle testing becomes a real problem for you too. And I get that everybody's on a continuum of what God's showing them and revealing to them. So I respect people that they just want to they have questions about muscle testing, but the way that this work is designed, the way that I have discovered works the best, is a very unique way to communicate with the body that is not reliant upon a whole lot of interpretation. You just get better and better at the questions, and you get better at recognizing the feedback. And people mix it up with spiritual work, the whole idea of it being spirit work. And if you're doing muscle testing that's spirit work, that's totally different than muscle testing that's physical work. And that's a whole nother broadcast. But, the type of muscle testing that we're doing is physical. It interacts with the physical body. It's not interacting with the spirit. It's not interacting with the soul. That's not what's going on. It's a physical biofeedback mechanism that gives us answers. And it's amazing what we see and what we find.
And like on that really basic level for newbies, I mean, you just have to have like one bad product and have it muscle test as detrimental and remove it from your regimen and get those migraines or those earaches or that kind of stuff to go away. You stopped flossing with bad floss or using a bad shampoo. And you're like, oh my goodness, this is amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That is one of the things that really sold me was I was getting these just unbelievable earaches. And I haven't gotten earaches since I was single digit years old, like really little kid. And it was just like a head splitting earache in both ears. And Natalie, I was testing every product I come in contact with during the day. And Natalie's like, those little flossers, Oral-B flossers, are bad. So I stopped using them and the earaches went away. It's amazing.
That's right.
So, yeah, like undeniable. Awesome.
Yeah, it's not like I'm sitting here telling people to go on regimens, telling people to go do X, Y, and Z. I'm saying stop using the hormone disruptor and your migraines will go away.
And you're not selling products.
Yeah.
You're not, right.
Right. Go ahead, Erin.
And we just switched it out for Placker's brand, and he's fine.
He's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the earaches go away. And so the work is multi-approached. We get rid of the nanotechnology, the technology in the body, the weaponized genetic material that's in the body, all the different stuff that we can, that is a whole nother discussion about what types of technology come into the body. And if you have not heard our layered technology, what was the name of that, Jess, that we just did? Building the Matrix. That's what we did. We did a 3-part series about that. That's a beginner's viewpoint on the type of layer technology that comes into the body. But not only does this work navigate that, but it navigates anything else that's not good for the body, like in Drew's situation, the Placker or the Oral-B, flossers, or me and Jess, if I've done it once, I've done it 10 times, where I go out and buy a product and it's bad and it disrupts my hormones. And so then, Jess gets something and she wakes up in the middle of the night with hot flashes and she breaks out with a rash, or I get, body pain or arthritic pain, and it's because I'm using a product and I didn't muscle test it before. I was just like, seriously. So there's more to getting well than sometimes pathogens, toxins, and technology. Sometimes it's like, stop using that product and all of your symptoms will go away.
Which touches a whole nother industry. When we're talking about these personal products.
That's right.
That are disruptive.
We're talking about a whole
deodorants and shampoos, soaps.
Yeah, whole industry of endocrine disruptors that are endocrine disruptors on purpose. Yes. It's not hard actually to make a product that's got good, clean ingredients. They're just doing it on purpose to control and depress and shut down the endocrine system. Why? What do you do when you shut down the endocrine system? People get sick. They stop having babies. They get headaches. They get stomach aches. Their joints hurt. They have thyroid problems. They have adrenal shutdown. They have heart palpitations. Left and right, we see that kind of stuff.
It would be interesting to know some of these companies that are putting out these products that are hormone disruptors are in some way connected to the pharmaceutical companies. Bayer, for example, who also owns what used to be Monsanto, right?
Right.
King of glyphosate. And so it's all coming out in the news how bad glyphosate is now, finally.
Right. I suspect that they have another product to introduce that's going to be better than glyphosate and not cancer causing. And we just go through the same process again and again of let's put more chemicals, different types of chemicals, because glyphosate's not working anymore. Well, some of the reasons glyphosate's not working anymore is because the AI grid is down. It's hard to have a product that's that works when it's not attached to the AI grid, but that's another discussion. But Erin, it looks like you want to say something.
Oh, yeah, I do. But also in my head, I was thinking, Brondo, it's what plants crave. But the thing about the hormone disruptors and the one product, if the system itself wasn't intelligently designed, you would not be able to get the feedback out of the body that gives you that information in the first place.
That's right.
Yeah.
You would not be able to have a dialogue because you're just a dumb animal who's succumbing to your genetic information at any given moment. And it would just be a revolving door of who has the best information and who doesn't. And it really, when you see humanity like that, you deprive humans of their humanity. They just stop being human and they just start being, genetic aberrations that died. We're so sorry.
They start being ingredients in vaccinations.
Bingo. Exactly. Exactly. And that brings me to, starting to wrap this up a little bit. In 1 Corinthians 3:16, it says, "Do you not know and understand that you are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? If anyone destroys the temple of God, God will destroy the destroyer, for the temple of God is holy, and that is what you are." We are made to house the divine. God made us to be a temple. When you go out on the street and you see a church, it has a purpose. Its purpose is to direct you to God, is to supposedly house the people of God. Our bodies are the housing unit for God. God has said, "I have so intricately designed you that I have designed you, you and me, to be together forever, for me to indwell in you, to be a part of you, to be speaking to you." And that is what the Darwinian entire paradigm yanks out. That is God and who we really are. If they can hide who we are in Christ, in God, what our purpose is, then they can hide our very salvation, the whole way to get to God.
We are the Holy of Holies.
That's right. And that's what drew me to this whole paradigm, is I knew that paradigm was not working. I wanted a paradigm that came straight from God, that God said, and hey, look, I say this from time to time, there wasn't a magical download on the top of a mountain one day. This was searching, seeking, begging, crying out, weeping, asking God, what about this? What's next? Okay, I'm going to show you this mountain. Today, what I want you to I want you to sit down at the bottom of this mountain because you haven't even started the journey yet. I need you to look at this bush. I need you to sit there and just stare at this bush for like 2 weeks. Okay, now I need you to get up. I need you to walk over 3 steps. I need you to sit down. There's a cave over there. Don't go in that cave, but I just want you to look at the cave. And I did that every day for almost 10 years, seeking and asking God. There was no download. Quantum release didn't magically happen from the heavens. It was hard work of staying in the process. And every one of you guys who are in the university knows that that's what it's like. Because even though we're kind of playing shortcut in the university and kind of showing you how to avoid mistakes, it's still hard, and you're still having communication with God the whole time. And it takes a lot of effort to learn this work. It's not just a simple download. There's an entire paradigm shift that you have to do this work. And it means that old paradigm, the Darwinian medical paradigm, has to be completely supplanted. with something else, but you can't supplant something you're not willing to give up. So you red pill people along the way constantly. Okay, well, that's not true. It's not true that cancer is normal. It's not true that you should get allergies every spring. It's not true that wheat is bad. These are things that we have accepted as a society, and they're lies to facilitate the entry into a evil paradigm, a Darwinian evil paradigm. And what God is saying is there's something else. There's something more. There's something better. And that is hope. And that's the only hope I have found to get well. It's the only hope I have seen in clients and what I have seen in my own family.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any parting words before we close up? This has been a really good discussion. Anybody have anything they'd like to part with?
I was going to say just Christians. I mean, God loves you. People, you who are really sick, your God loves you. He's been fighting to push this information into this world, you know, and the reason healing has been so hard to get is because his solution is so at odds with the paradigms of this world and the wisdom of this world, you know. Psalm 1 says, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, you know. The medical system is the counsel of the wicked.
That's right.
You know, do not walk in it. It's not true. It's not good. And the reason it's been so hard, the reason like you have had to struggle so hard is because it was almost impossible for God to get this information in because we were blocked off to it. He had
avenues.
He had to blast through so many different strongholds that we didn't even know existed to get this in to planet Earth, you know. And I'm telling you, this is like, right, this is from your God. Like, this is his solution to a lot of problems.
A lot of problems, and it will sustain us.
You know, but it's like, as far as I can tell, it's like the thing, you know. I'm sure there's other things, but this is like huge. It's so huge. It's so huge. And it's his solution. This is the solution.
Yes.
To this weird stuff, especially. It's weird health problem stuff.
Right.
Drew, I know you weren't saying this, but I just want to say, you know, not all doctors are bad people. I know some really good doctors, and boy, we need them. If we have a broken bone that needs to be reset, we need somebody who's been skilled in that area. My husband got a really bad cut on his face and needed stitches, and I wasn't going to be able to give them to him.
Right.
So we had to go to the doctor for that. So we know that not all doctors are bad people.
Yes.
And it's the system that we're talking about, not the doctors as people. And
right.
I just want to agree, Christians, to take heart, but also Christians need to take a stand. It's really important what we put in our bodies and on our bodies, because it is the temple. We can't just stand by and say, well, you know, we have to get vaccines because they're good. If we're against abortion and we're against having human DNA, if we're against, you know, taking this human DNA and putting it in our bodies, cannibalism,
yes,
then we need to think twice or 3 times or as many as it takes before we are going to go and get a vaccine that contains embryonic DNA.
That's right.
Our nation is in a season of wrenching back its sovereignty from those who have stolen it from us. And we need to do the same thing. We need to rip back our personal sovereignty and be like, you know what? I'm in charge of my body and my family. Nobody else. Not the government, not the medical system, not the school system, nobody.
That's right.
Off.
Right.
Back off.
And like Erin said, they're not the authority over you. Erin said that earlier. That was really good.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm talking philosophy. Yeah, I'm not bashing doctors. I'm just saying the philosophy under which they operate is wrong. It's not true.
Right.
Right. Erin, we're going to say something.
Yeah. And also, I've been the person who's sat in the seat of the sick person who's been corrected and told what to do and all this stuff. And for everybody who's out there who just, takes it on the chin every time somebody has an idea for you, don't take this podcast as a disparagement, but an encouragement. Let this podcast put courage into you that there is hope for you personally, for your body, your physical body. God knows about it. He cares about it. He's seen it. And he made it so that it can tell us what's wrong with it.
Yes. Yes. And I tell you, I would have clamored, to work, and I did clamor to work like this when my kids were sick. And there is other work that's kind of similar that's out there, but it didn't ever really address the core issue. And that's where we are, is there's hope because the core issues are getting resolved.
And when you're sick, hope is a very, very scary thing.
That's right.
Because if it doesn't deliver, you're right back. You're right where you started.
Right. That's right. That's a great way to end this broadcast. And I tell you what, I appreciate everybody to come in. This is everybody's on their wild Friday night. They're doing podcasts with Natalie on Quantum Command Radio. So I appreciate everybody coming in on their Friday night when you could, be out partying and painting the town. I'm sure that's what you guys. So I don't know about you, but I have had a great time processing some of this stuff. And it's really nice to get these ideas out into the open and really be able to talk about things that nobody else is talking about. And particularly when it comes to the medical establishment, we're not really doing the hard work of thinking through what the unintended consequences of these types of paradigms are. And I think it really it continues to challenge me because I still have things that I have to, change in my thinking, although I've been red pilled all the way to the matrix and back. So I don't know what much is left. I'm already in the hotbed of weird around here. So I don't know if I could add anything else, but I just know that the Lord has really used this work, and we've really been able to see some pretty amazing things. And thank you, Drew and Erin, for showing up. And I just love talking with you guys. You are just warriors. And I tell you what, Drew and Erin have thought really hard about this work and have talked about it and are doing it and are part of really the forwarding of this work in a lot of ways. And so I really appreciate them. And
I needed to get it out. I don't have anywhere else to talk about this stuff with, and everybody who's listening, it's good to share it with somebody.
That's right. That's right.
What else would we do on a Friday night, really? We're all in the hotbed of weird.
That's right.
I just feel so thankful to God to be alive in the hour where he delivered this kind of revelation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like getting a front row seat. It is a privilege. It's a joy.
It's really cool. It's really cool seeing how revelation happens on like a timeline, and you can watch it, like the physical feedback of the body is happening as you're getting the revelation, and it's just in real time, and you're like, man, this is how God works. This is so cool.
And you see that in the Bible. You see like the Spirit of God came on King Saul when he was anointed, and it's like, you're like, oh my gosh, he's prophesied. This is so cool. And it's like,
right. And
it's like, not only is that just like him touching our lives, he's doing it about something physical.
And he cares about our physical state of being. He does. Because, there's Christians out there, it's like, oh, don't worry, this physical life, it'll die and you'll go to heaven and it'll be wonderful and you'll be healed in heaven. I'm like, I don't want to be healed in heaven. I want to be healed right now because I want to have an abundant life right now. I believe that as a child of God, I'm entitled to that. Not that I'm name it and claim it, but like, this is not God's plan for me to be sick all my entire life, have a wasted life, and not be able to do any redemption work on this planet. Exactly. So you guys are going to get me going again.
Take me to heaven if that's where the the good stuff is. Like, why am I here?
Why am I here? If I'm going to be healed in heaven, but I just always believed there had to be a reason why I was sick. And the typical stuff was not answering my questions or healing me for that matter. So, all right, we better wrap it up before we get into another paradigm discussion, because I tell you what, it's easy to to talk about all this. Jess, do you have anything else you want to say before we get off the call here?
No, it's been good to talk with you guys, and thanks Drew and Erin again for being here and leading in the discussion.
Yeah. And thank you, Jess, for, as usual, moderating. And I just love, Jess always has this really great perspective too. And it's just this wonderful little, group that we have here going. It's really great. And so, well, we'll just say goodbye for tonight or this morning or this afternoon, wherever you guys are listening. And we really appreciate you tuning in. We hope you are blessed by this broadcast. If you want more information, please check out the other videos on the YouTube. They're Quantum Command. And if you are interested in that layer technology aspect, definitely look at that, the Red Pill episode and the layer technology, the Building the Matrix episode. It's a 3-part series. And we hope to be, doing more of these broadcasts. It's just we had a little blip on the radar where we just weren't able to do some there for about a month or two. So we're kind of back in the saddle again, and we really like doing these. Check out my website, www.quantumcommand.net. You can do some appointment stuff there. If you want to schedule an appointment, you can schedule a consult. However you want to approach this work is great. But we just, we want you all to know that we love you. And thank you, by the way, all of the clients that listen. I have a lot of clients that listen to this, and you guys are praying for us. And we would not be able to do this without your prayers. You literally, it's like Moses' arms being lifted up. You guys are lifting our arms for the victory as your prayers come in and really activate this work and really just, it feeds us. We just, in desperate times, we just know that your prayers are really helping us. So we love all of you guys, and we're so thankful for you. So we're going to sign off for now. You guys have a great rest of your day, and we will see you on the next broadcast.